Zara Washington looked out the small oval window of the private jet. The clouds below looked like soft cotton balls spread across the blue sky. She had been on this flight for an hour now, traveling from New York to Seattle for an important meeting. At just 22 years old, Zara was already changing the world with her brilliant mind. The jet was very fancy. The seats were made of soft cream leather. The tables were shiny dark wood. Everything smelled new and clean. This was how rich people traveled, and while Zara came from money, she never cared much for showing it off. She preferred her simple jeans, white button-up shirt, and the worn leather jacket that had been a gift from her father on her 18th birthday. Zara looked back at her tablet. On the screen were complex math problems that she had been working on for months. These were not ordinary math problems. These were equations that could change how humans traveled in space. Zara had always been good with numbers, even as a small child. Now her work was about to make history. "Would you like something to drink, miss?" asked Diane Miller, one of the flight attendants. Her smile did not reach her eyes as she looked at Zara. "Just water, please," Zara said with a polite nod. Diane returned with the water, placing it on Zara's table with a small frown. "May I see your ticket again?" she asked, her voice suddenly cold. Zara blinked in surprise. This was the third time she had been asked to show her ticket since boarding the plane. "Of course," she said, pulling up the digital ticket on her phone. "Is there a problem?" Diane studied the ticket for a long time, longer than needed. "Wait here," she said finally, walking to the front of the plane where she began a hushed conversation with another flight attendant named Paul. Zara tried to focus on her work again, but she could feel the stares of other passengers. Most of them were older white men in business suits. A few were with their wives or girlfriends dressed in clothes that probably cost more than many people earned in a month. Zara was used to being the only black person in rooms like this, but something felt different today. The air felt heavy with something unpleasant. 10 minutes later, the door to the cockpit opened. Captain Frank Powell stepped out, his face serious as he walked toward Zara's seat. "Miss, I need to speak with you," he said, standing over her with his arms crossed. "Yes, Captain?" Zara replied, keeping her voice calm even as her heart began to beat faster. "We've received information that your ticket may not be real," he said loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "We believe you may have gotten on this flight through improper means." Zara felt her face grow warm. "That's impossible," she said firmly. "My father's company booked this flight for me. Washington Interstellar Technologies. I'm sure if you check again, we checked thoroughly," the captain cut her off. "This jet is for approved passengers only. We'll be making an emergency landing at the nearest airport and you'll need to get off there." "This is ridiculous," Zara said, her voice still controlled but growing stronger. "I'm on my way to Seattle to present important research to NASA. If there's a problem with my ticket, I can call my father right now and clear this up." "The decision has been made," Captain Powell said coldly. "We're changing course now. Please gather your things." Diane stood nearby, a small, satisfied smile on her face. Paul looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Some passengers were watching. With interest, others pretending not to notice. "Why are you really doing this?" Zara asked quietly, looking the captain directly in the eyes. The captain didn't answer. He turned and walked back to the cockpit. 30 minutes later, the jet began its descent toward a small regional airport in the middle of nowhere. Through the window, Zara could see it was barely more than a strip of concrete with a tiny building beside it. There were no other planes in sight. When they landed, Diane approached with a security guard who had been waiting on the tarmac. "Time to go," Diane said, not bothering to hide her smug tone. Zara stood up with dignity. She collected her tablet, her small backpack, and her jacket. She walked toward the exit without looking at anyone. Her back was straight, her head held. Hiking as she stepped out of the plane into the cool afternoon air, she heard Diane say to another passenger, "Some people just don't belong in first class." The security guard, a bored-looking man named Rick according to his badge, led her down the stairs to the tarmac. The jet crew quickly unloaded her 2 suitcases, dropping them roughly on the ground. One of them popped open, spilling some of her clothes onto the concrete. "You can wait in the building for another flight," Rick said, pointing to the small terminal. "Though not many come through here." He walked away without offering to help with her bags. Zara watched as the jet's door closed. The engines roared back to life, and soon the plane was taxiing away, leaving her alone on the empty tarmac. For a long moment, Zara just stood there. The wind blew her hair across her face. She took a deep breath and bent down to pick up her clothes and fix her suitcase. As she worked, she felt a calm kind of anger building inside her. Not the hot, quick kind that makes people yell and scream, but the cold, clear kind that makes people change the world. When her suitcase was repacked, Zara pulled out her phone. She took a picture of herself standing there alone with her bags. Then she pressed a special button on her watch, a gift from her father that connected directly to his personal system. The message she sent was simple. "Dad, there's been a problem. Skylight Jets just kicked me off their plane for no good reason. I'm stranded at Riverdale Regional Airport." She added the photo and pressed send. Then Zara picked up her bags and walked toward the small terminal building. As she walked, a small smile formed on her lips. Most people saw a young black woman being mistreated. They didn't see the daughter of Harrison Washington, the man who owned half the satellites in orbit and was about to launch humanity's first true interstellar mission. Skylight Jets had just made a very big mistake. And Zara knew exactly what her father would do when he got her message. The tiny airport was quiet as Zara settled into an uncomfortable plastic chair to wait. The building was almost empty, except for a sleepy attendant behind the counter. Outside, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky with orange and purple. Zara opened her tablet and returned to her equations. The ones that would change everything about space travel. The ones she was supposed to present tomorrow. Let them have their little power trip, she whispered to herself. Tomorrow the world changes anyway. Harrison Washington stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office on the top floor of the Washington Tower in Seattle. The city spread out below him like a model made of lights and tiny buildings. At 56 years old, Harrison had built an empire that stretched beyond Earth. His company, Washington Interstellar Technologies, was the leader in space travel and off-world mining. He was a tall man with dark skin that had a few more wrinkles these days, close-cropped gray hair, and eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore a simple but perfectly fitted navy blue suit, no tie. Harrison never wore ties. He said they felt like leashes. "Mr. Washington, the reports from Mars Colony are ready for your review," said Olivia Garcia, his executive assistant for the past 15 years. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who ran his office with military precision. Harrison turned, about to respond, when his watch made a special tone. Only one person's messages made that sound. His daughter, Zara. He looked down at his watch, then tapped it to display the message on the larger screen on his desk. His eyes narrowed as he read the message and saw the photo of Zara standing alone with her luggage at some small airport. "Olivia," he said quietly, "put the Mars reports on hold." Olivia knew that tone. It was the calm voice Harrison used when he was most angry. She had heard it only a few times over the years. Each time had been followed by the complete destruction of whoever had caused it. "What's happened?" she asked. "My daughter has been removed from her flight, Skylight Jets." He looked up at Olivia. "What do we know about them?" Olivia moved to her tablet and typed quickly. "Skylight Jets is a luxury private jet company. They cater to wealthy clients who want to avoid commercial flights. Their CEO is Victoria Bennett. They have 50 jets in their fleet and operate mainly on the East and West coasts." Harrison nodded slowly. "And what is our relationship with them?" "None, sir. We have our own fleet for company travel." "I see." Harrison walked to his desk and pressed a button. "Bryce, prepare the Phantom. I'm going to New York now." "Yes, sir," came the immediate reply from his head of security. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "The Phantom, sir, not the company jet?" The Phantom was Harrison's personal Rolls-Royce, but it was not a normal car. It had been changed with technology that most people didn't know existed. Technology that his company had developed for space travel, but that Harrison had put into his car as a personal project. The Phantom could fly. Not just drive fast, but actually fly. It could also do other things that seemed impossible. "This is personal," Harrison said simply. "Get me everything on Skylight. Their company records, flight logs, employee files. I want to know who was working on Flight 207 today. I want names, histories, everything." "Right away," Olivia said, already typing commands into her tablet. Harrison touched his watch again. "Zara, I'm coming to get you myself. Send me your exact location." A moment later, a map appeared on his screen with a blinking dot. "Also, call Zara's phone," Harrison said. The large screen on his wall lit up, and Zara's face appeared. She was sitting in what looked like a small empty waiting area. "Dad," she said with a small smile, "you didn't have to drop everything." "Tell me exactly what happened," Harrison said, his voice gentle but firm. As Zara explained the situation, Harrison's face remained calm, but his eyes grew harder. When she finished, he asked, "Did they give any real reason? Any explanation at all?" "No," Zara said. "Just that my ticket was fraudulent." "But I know what it was really about, Dad." Harrison nodded. He knew too. His daughter had faced this kind of treatment before, though never quite so blatantly. Being a young black woman in spaces dominated by older white men always came with challenges. But this time they had gone too far. "Your presentation to NASA," Harrison said. "It's tomorrow." "Yes. And my notes and research are all with me, thankfully. But I need to get to Seattle. I'll handle it. All of it." Harrison's voice was firm. "Wait for me. I won't be long." After ending the call, Harrison turned to find Olivia already holding a tablet out to him. On it was all the information about Skylight Jets she had been able to gather so quickly. "Their headquarters is in Manhattan," she said. "The 50th floor of the Archer building. And the flight crew? Captain Frank Powell, flight attendants Diane Miller and Paul Johnson." Harrison scanned through their files quickly. "Interesting. Captain Powell has 3 complaints filed against him in the past year. All from passengers, of color, all dismissed by the company." His finger slid across the screen. "And Ms. Miller has quite the social media history." Olivia nodded grimly. "I flagged those posts for you. Some of them are concerning." "Indeed." Harrison handed the tablet back. "Make sure Zara has food and anything else she needs. Use our local contacts, and reschedule tomorrow's meetings. I'll be busy." "What about her NASA presentation?" "They'll wait," Harrison said with absolute certainty. "They've been trying to get her to share this research for months." 20 minutes later, Harrison stepped onto the roof of Washington Tower, where the Phantom waited. The car was a masterpiece of engineering. It looked like a normal Rolls-Royce Phantom from the outside, though painted in such a deep black that it seemed to swallow light. Its windows were tinted completely dark. Bryce, his head of security, stood beside the car. He was a former Special Forces soldier who had worked for Harrison for 10 years. "The car is ready, sir," Bryce said, opening the door for him. "And I took the liberty of adding some extra features for this trip." Harrison smiled slightly. "Such as?" "Let's just say the Phantom is now equipped to access and control any electronic system it comes in contact with." "Good man," Harrison said, sliding into the back seat. Once the door closed, Harrison spoke to the car itself. "Phantom, activate flight mode. Destination, Riverdale Regional Airport." The car's engine made a sound unlike any normal car. It was a soft hum that built to a gentle purr as the vehicle slowly lifted off the ground. Inside, Harrison made one more call on the car's communication system. "Alan," he said when his company's lead lawyer answered, "I need you to prepare for a major acquisition. We're buying a private jet company today." "That's very sudden," Alan replied. "Which company?" "Skylight Jets. But before we buy them, we're going to destroy their reputation and crash their stock price. I'll explain why when I see you tomorrow. For now, just be ready." As the Phantom accelerated eastward, flying far faster than any airplane, Harrison looked out at the darkening sky. Nobody messed with his daughter. And tomorrow, Skylight Jets would learn exactly who they had insulted when they threw Zara Washington off their plane. Victoria Bennett sat at the head of the long table in the Skylight Jets boardroom on the 50th floor of the Archer Building in Manhattan. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, giving a perfect view of the city below. Victoria was 48 years old with carefully styled blonde hair and a gray designer suit that cost more than most people made in a month. "Our first quarter numbers are strong," said Gregory Holt, the company's chief financial officer. He pointed to charts displayed on the large screen. "Profits are up 15% from last year. Our strategy of focusing on the ultra-wealthy market is working." Victoria nodded with approval. The 10 board members around the table looked pleased. Skylight Jets had found its place in the market by offering exclusive service to only the wealthiest clients. The company prided itself on luxury and exclusivity. "Our client satisfaction ratings are at 97%, continued Gregory. "Though we did have that one incident yesterday with Flight 207. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "A mix-up with a passenger, nothing serious. Our crew handled it professionally." "The passenger was removed mid-flight," said Linda Parker, the head of customer relations. She looked nervous. She claimed to be the daughter of Harrison Washington. "Claims like that are common," Victoria replied. "People will say anything to get special treatment. Our crew confirmed her ticket was suspicious." "I've looked into it," Linda said quietly. "The ticket was actually legitimate. It was booked through Washington Interstellar Technologies." The room fell silent. Several board members exchanged worried glances. "Harrison Washington?" asked someone. "The Harrison Washington?" Before anyone could answer, the building shook slightly. The lights flickered for a moment. "What was that?" Gregory asked, looking up at the ceiling. "Construction." The shaking happened again, stronger this time. Outside the windows, a shadow passed by, something large moving just out of view. The entire board turned to look, but whatever it was had already gone. Then every screen in the room changed at once. The financial charts disappeared. In their place appeared an image of a young black woman standing alone on an airport tarmac, with luggage scattered around her. The woman was Zara Washington. "What is happening?" Victoria demanded, pressing buttons on the table console. "Someone, fix this." The tech support person in the room tapped frantically on his tablet. "I can't, Ms. Bennett. We're locked out of our own system." The main doors to the boardroom slid open with a soft hiss. Everyone turned to look. Standing in the doorway was a tall, imposing man with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. He wore a navy blue suit with no tie. His eyes scanned the room, carefully taking in each person. Behind him stood 2 people in suits so black they seemed to absorb light. They wore small earpieces and had the alert posture of highly trained security personnel. Victoria stood up quickly. "This is a private meeting. How did you get past security?" "Your security team is currently enjoying coffee in the break room," the man said as he walked into the room with unhurried steps. "I suggested they take a break." Victoria's face showed a flash of recognition as the man approached the table. "You're Harrison Washington." "I am." Harrison's voice was calm but carried throughout the room. "And yesterday, your company expelled my daughter from one of your jets and left her stranded at a small regional airport." Victoria swallowed hard. "Mr. Washington, if there was a misunderstanding, I'm sure we can—" "This was not a misunderstanding," Harrison interrupted. He placed a small silver device on the table. It projected a holographic display that hovered in the air for everyone to see. "These are messages exchanged between your operations team and the crew of Flight 207. The messages appeared in the air, clearly showing instructions to the flight crew about maintaining the exclusive atmosphere and removing passengers who don't meet company standards." "That's not what it looks like," Victoria said quickly. "No?" Harrison raised an eyebrow. The display changed to show social media posts from Diane Miller, the flight attendant, with clearly racist comments about passengers she had served. Next came Captain Powell's record showing multiple complaints that had been dismissed. The board members looked increasingly uncomfortable. My daughter was on her way to present her quantum stabilization theory to NASA, Harrison said, his voice still calm but with a hard edge now. A theory that will revolutionize space travel. She had a legitimate ticket, booked by my company. Your crew removed her because of the color of her skin. Outside the windows, the shadow appeared again. This time it stayed. The board members gasped as they saw what was hovering outside their 50th floor window, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom floating in midair. The car's engine glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to bend the air around it. That's impossible, whispered Gregory, staring at the flying car. Many things people think are impossible simply haven't been tried by the right people, Harrison replied without looking at the car. His focus remained on Victoria. Your company has a pattern of discrimination that goes beyond my daughter. I've found 27 incidents in the past year alone. Victoria sank back into her chair. What do you want from us, Mr. Washington? Money? An apology? Harrison almost smiled. Neither would be enough. He tapped the silver device again. The holographic display showed Skylight's stock price beginning to fall in real time, as news of the discrimination incidents began hitting financial news sites. How are you doing this? Victoria asked, her voice shaking as she watched her company's value dropping by the second. I own 12% of the world's information infrastructure, Harrison said simply, and I've just released all the evidence of your company's practices to every major news outlet and regulatory agency. Linda Parker stood up suddenly. I knew about this. I tried to address it multiple times. She looked at Victoria. You told me to ignore the complaints from certain types of passengers. You said they weren't our target clientele. The other board members began to murmur among themselves. Outside, news helicopters were appearing, circling the building to film the impossible sight of the flying Rolls-Royce. By this time tomorrow, Harrison continued, Skylight Jets will have lost 90% of its value. The day after, my company will buy what's left. Your clients will move to other services. Your reputation will never recover. Victoria's face had gone pale. You can't do this. I already have. Harrison picked up his device from the table. But this isn't about destroying your company. This is about what happens next. What do you mean? Asked one of the board members. My daughter was going to present a theory that would make traditional flight methods obsolete. Technology that will change how humans travel, both on Earth and beyond. Harrison gestured to the floating car outside. That's just a small demonstration. The room was completely silent now. When I take control of this company, Harrison continued, every employee who was not involved in discrimination will be retrained to work with the new technology. Those who were involved will be publicly identified and never work in transportation. Again. He walked to the window and looked out at his floating car, then back at the board. The mistake wasn't removing my daughter from your plane, he said quietly. The mistake was thinking that her worth as a human being had anything to do with her father's name or bank account. She earned her seat on that plane through her own brilliance. She deserved respect because she is a person, not because she's my daughter. With those words, Harrison Washington turned and walked out of the boardroom, his security team following behind him. The screens in the room continued to display Zara standing alone at the airport, a powerful reminder of what had set these events in motion. As the door closed behind him, the black Rolls-Royce outside the window dipped slightly as if bowing to the board, before speeding away into the sky. The world could not stop talking about what happened. News channels showed the same footage over and over, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom floating next to the 50th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. Social media exploded with videos captured by people on the streets below. The story spread faster than anyone could have predicted. By evening, the full story had emerged. Zara Washington, daughter of billionaire Harrison Washington, had been kicked off a Skylight Jets flight for no good reason. The next day, her father had arrived in a flying car to confront the company's leaders. The evidence of Skylight's pattern of discrimination was now public. Their stock had fallen by 60% in just one day. Harrison had picked up Zara from the small airport in his flying Rolls-Royce. Together, they flew directly to NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C., where officials had been anxiously waiting for Zara's arrival. Now, 24 hours after her presentation, Zara stood on a stage in a large auditorium at NASA. The room was packed with scientists, engineers, reporters, and government officials. Everyone wanted to hear from the young genius who had solved one of the biggest problems in space travel. Zara looked different today. Gone were the casual jeans and worn leather jacket. She wore a simple but elegant dark blue dress with a silver necklace shaped like a galaxy. Her hair was styled in neat braids. She looked confident as she moved through her presentation. The key problem with current space engines is the quantum instability at high speeds, Zara explained, pointing to equations on the large screen behind her. She spoke clearly, using simple words to explain complex ideas. My theory shows how to stabilize these particles, allowing ships to travel much faster while using much less energy. The crowd was silent, completely focused on her words. What this means, Zara continued, is that trips to Mars that now take 7 months could take just 3 weeks. And more importantly, travel beyond our solar system becomes possible within a human lifetime. Dr. Elaine Foster, NASA's head of propulsion research, stood up when Zara finished. Ms. Washington, this is revolutionary. Our team has reviewed your equations and they check out. This changes everything we thought we knew about interstellar travel. Zara nodded. The math doesn't lie, she said simply. People do. Companies do. Systems do. But the equations remain true regardless of who writes them. Her words hit hard. Everyone in the room knew what she was really talking about. The camera flashes increased as reporters recognized a perfect quote. After the presentation, reporters swarmed around Zara. Their questions came fast. Ms. Washington, how does it feel to have your work recognized? What will you do next? Can you tell us more about the incident on the Skylight jet? Zara answered calmly. My work speaks for itself. These equations have been my focus for 3 years. As for what happened on that plane, she paused, choosing her words carefully. It was not new or surprising to me. What was surprising was that it happened so openly. Are you angry about how you were treated? One reporter pressed. I don't have time to be angry, Zara replied. I'm too busy changing the future of space travel. At the back of the room, Harrison Washington watched with quiet pride. His daughter had never needed his help to prove her brilliance, but sometimes the world needed a reminder of whose daughter they were disrespecting. After the press conference, Harrison and Zara walked together through NASA's halls. Scientists and staff watched them pass with a mix of awe and respect. You didn't need to make such a big show at Skylight, Zara said when they were alone. The flying car was a bit much, don't you think? Harrison smiled slightly. Perhaps, but sometimes a point needs to be made clearly. You revealed technology we weren't planning to show for another 5 years, Zara pointed out. True. But now everyone knows it exists. No one can ignore it or pretend it doesn't matter. Harrison looked at his daughter. Just like no one can ignore you anymore. Zara nodded, understanding. Sometimes power had to be shown to be respected. Back at their hotel suite that evening, Harrison reviewed the business reports that Olivia had sent. Skylight Jets was crumbling faster than even he had expected. Victoria Bennett had resigned. Several board members were also stepping down. The company's clients were canceling contracts. You're really going to buy them? Zara asked, looking over her father's shoulder at the reports. Yes, Harrison confirmed. But not to run it as a private jet company. What then? I'm thinking of a training program, Harrison said, putting down his tablet. For young people from communities that don't usually get opportunities in aerospace. We'll use the jets to teach them, then transition them to the new technology once they're ready. Zara smiled. It was a good idea. Turn something broken into something helpful. The next morning, Diane Miller, the flight attendant from Skylight who had been so rude to Zara, woke up to find her face on the front page of major news sites. The social media posts she had made, over the years showing her bias against passengers of color, were being shared widely. By noon, she had been fired. By evening, she had become the face of the scandal. Captain Frank Powell faced similar consequences. His history of removing certain passengers from flights was now public knowledge. His pilot's license was under review. His reputation was ruined. Paul Johnson, the other flight attendant who had stood by silently, issued a public apology. He admitted that he had seen the pattern of discrimination, but had done nothing to stop it. He offered to participate in any investigations or training programs to help prevent similar incidents in the future. The story continued to grow. Other passengers came forward with similar experiences on skylight jets and other luxury services. Government agencies announced investigations into discrimination in the transportation industry. 3 days after the incident, Zara received an email from NASA offering her a position as special consultant to their new interstellar program. They wanted her to lead the development of engines based on her quantum stabilization theory. The email ended with, "We would have sent a private jet to bring you to the meeting, but we've heard you might prefer other transportation methods. Please let us know if Mr. Washington's Rolls-Royce would be available." Zara laughed when she read it. Word of the flying car had clearly made an impression. That afternoon, she met with her father in his Seattle office. The view of the city was stunning from the top floor of Washington Tower. "So NASA wants to work with me directly," she told him. Harrison nodded. "Of course they do. Your theory changes everything." "And they made a joke about your car," she added with a smile. "It wasn't meant to be a joke," Harrison said seriously. "It was meant to be a statement." Zara looked at her father. The statement worked. Skylight is finished. The people who disrespected me are facing consequences. What now? Harrison walked to his desk and pressed a button. A holographic display appeared, showing the designs for a new spacecraft. "Now," he said, "we show the world what happens next. Your theory doesn't just change how we travel in space, it changes who gets to go there." 1 year later, Zara Washington stood on the observation deck of the Witt Equality, the most advanced spaceship ever built by humans. Through the large viewing window, Earth looked small and blue against the blackness of space. The ship hummed, with the power of engines built using her quantum stabilization theory. Zara had changed in the past year. At 23, she carried herself with even more confidence. Her hair was styled in long braids that floated slightly in the ship's artificial gravity. She wore a dark blue uniform with a silver patch showing the mission logo. A Rolls-Royce, phantom surrounded by stars. "Captain Washington," said a voice behind her. "The final systems check is complete. All green." Zara turned to see Sam Chen, her chief engineer. He was one of 50 crew members aboard the Witt Equality, each chosen personally by Zara. What made this crew special was not just their brilliance but their diversity. They came from backgrounds rarely represented in space programs. People who, like Zara, had been underestimated or dismissed throughout their careers. "Thank you, Sam," Zara replied. "Tell the crew we'll hold a final briefing in 30 minutes. As Sam left, Harrison Washington joined his daughter at the viewing window. In the past year, his company had grown even more powerful. The technology from the flying Rolls-Royce was now being used in public transportation systems in major cities around the world. But nothing made him prouder than this ship and its mission. "Ready for your first command?" Harrison asked, looking out at the stars. Zara nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility. The Witt Equality would be the first ship to travel to Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. The journey would take just 2 years instead of the decades it would have required with older technology. "Do you remember what you told me when I chose the crew?" Zara asked. Harrison smiled. "I said you were taking a risk selecting people with less traditional experience, and I told you that sometimes the people who haven't been given chances are the ones who will push hardest to succeed." The crew of the Witt Equality came from all backgrounds. Some had been overlooked their entire careers. Others had faced discrimination, like Zara had. All were extremely talented. Under Zara's leadership, they had come together to create something revolutionary. "You know," Harrison said, looking around the ship, "when I bought Skylight jets, I never expected to convert their entire fleet into training vehicles for our space program. It was true. After taking control of Skylight, Harrison had transformed it completely. The company no longer existed by that name. Instead, the jets were now used to train young people from underserved communities in aviation and engineering. The program was called Second Chance, and it fed directly into Washington Interstellar Technologies' recruitment pipeline. The best revenge is creating opportunities for those who were never given any, Zara said. It had become something of a motto for her. In the center of the ship's main atrium, preserved behind clear panels, was the original Rolls-Royce Phantom that had caused such a sensation a year ago. The flying car had become a symbol of how quickly things could change when someone refused to accept the old limitations. Behind Zara and Harrison, the door slid open. Olivia Garcia entered, holding a tablet. Final communication from Earth before. The blackout window, she said, handing the tablet to Zara. Zara read the message and smiled. It was from Diane Miller, the flight attendant who had been so rude to her on that Skylight jet. After losing her job, Diane had gone through a very public fall from grace. But 6 months ago, she had applied to the Second Chance program, writing a long letter about how wrong she had been and how much she wanted to change. To everyone's surprise, Zara had approved her application. Everyone deserves a second chance, she had said when questioned about the decision. Even those who didn't give me one. The message from Diane was simple. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm learning so much. Good luck on your journey. Harrison read over Zara's shoulder. That was generous of you, he said. It wasn't generosity, Zara replied. It was strategy. Showing people they were wrong about you is good. Showing them a better way forward is better. The same approach had been applied to Captain Powell and others from Skylight. Some had accepted the chance to learn and change. Others had refused. Those who joined the program discovered a world of possibility they had never imagined. 5 minutes until the briefing, Captain, said the ship's computer system. Zara nodded. I should prepare. One more thing, Harrison said before she could leave. From his pocket, he pulled out a small box. Inside was a silver pin shaped like a tiny Rolls-Royce. For luck, Zara took the pin and attached it to her uniform collar. We don't need luck, she said with confidence. We have math. Harrison laughed. That was his daughter. Always trusting in the science and the equations that couldn't lie. In the briefing room, the entire crew gathered. 50 faces looked to Zara for leadership. Some had been with her from the beginning of the project. Others had joined along the way. All believed in her vision. In a few hours, Zara began, we will activate the quantum drive and begin our journey to Proxima Centauri. We'll be the first humans to travel to another star system. She paused, looking at each face in turn. But this mission isn't just about breaking a record or being first. It's about proving that the future of space exploration belongs to all, of humanity, not just a select few. The crew nodded in agreement. Many of them had their own stories of being excluded or overlooked. 1 year ago, I was thrown off a private jet because someone decided I didn't belong there, Zara continued. Today, we're taking a much more important journey, and we've made sure everyone belongs. After the briefing, as the crew went to their stations to prepare for the jump to quantum speed, Zara returned to the observation deck for one last look at Earth. The blue planet seemed so small from here, so far away, all the artificial barriers people created, all the ways they separated themselves from each other. None of it was visible from space. Harrison joined her for a final goodbye before he would return to Earth on the shuttle. Your mother would be so proud, he said quietly. Zara touched the necklace she always wore, a silver galaxy that had belonged to her mother, who had died when Zara was just a child. Her mother had been an astrophysicist who had dreamed of the stars but never had the chance to visit them. I know, Zara replied. This is for her too. As the countdown to quantum drive activation began, Zara took her place in the captain's chair on the bridge. The crew worked with focus and precision around her. On a small screen, she could see her father watching from the shuttle that would take him back to Earth. Quantum drive activating in 3, 2, 1, announced the ship's computer. The stars outside the window seemed to stretch and blur. The wit equality pushed through the barriers of space and time, carrying its diverse crew toward a new chapter in human history. Back on Earth, the story of the black girl expelled from a private jet, whose billionaire father's Rolls-Royce had arrived the next day, had become legend. But the better story, the one that would be told for generations, was what happened next, how that girl took humanity to the stars.